Hello and welcome to the Sex Within Marriage podcast. I'm JD, marriage educator, coach, writer, and podcaster. And at uncoveringintimacy.com, we offer a wide range of resources to help couples strengthen intimacy in all areas of their marriage. And welcome to the new year. I took a bit of a hiatus in December due to travel, sickness, holidays, and honestly just feeling a bit burnt out. But we're getting back on our schedules, and I thought we'd kick it off with catching up on our anonymous questions. These are questions that have been submitted over the last few months to our anonymous type of question page. They come with no contact information, and so all the context we have is what has been submitted. I post them in our supporters forum and let them add their thoughts to the discussion. Then typically every month or so, I gather them up and do a post like this. Now, one quick announcement before I start. I'm going to be redoing a bunch of stuff on the website, including redoing a lot of the pricing. And they're going to go up because, frankly, the cost of everything has gone up, including all our hosting costs and everything like that. So if you want a chance to grab stuff at the current prices, now is your chance. If you're already a coaching client, that's okay. You'll stay at the same price. But if you've been thinking about doing coaching, you might want to jump in now. And the same thing goes for our Becoming More Sexually Engaged course. We are going to be running a webinar on Sunday, January 26th at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, if you pre-order the course now, which we've already got 7 wives signed up for, you'll get the current pricing. If you wait for the webinar, then you're going to get the new pricing. Either way, links will be in the show notes. So with that out of the way, let's get on to the questions. Question 1 starts with, how do you start a conversation about not having sex with your spouse without it feeling like a total guilt trip? My wife and I are in our 30s, and it feels like a rarity for us to have sex. The biggest thing holding me back from having this conversation is that I feel like I'm just going to get pity sex. And that almost seems worse in my mind. I'm not trying to make my wife feel bad, but I also want her to have a light bulb moment of, aha, sex is fun. I want more of that. And I know that isn't going to magically happen. So basically, I'm stuck. I want it, and I want her to want it, but I don't want it if she's just going to do it out of pity, because that means she doesn't really want it. Am I making sense? Is there a solution or a talking point that can bring about understanding without it coming across like a major guilt trip? Now, this actually hits upon a lot of topics, and we're going to go through them in sort of a rapid fire, because I probably could do an entire weekend seminar on just answering this question. And you're right, it doesn't just magically happen. It takes intentionality, and she has to be willing to hear it. The first problem is that you have a bit of a chicken or the egg problem. If sex was better, then she'd likely want it more, but you can't get better if you're having infrequent sex because she doesn't want it. This is one of the many reasons I don't think spouses should have veto power over sex in the bedroom, other than extreme situations such as abuse, medical issues, and things like that. We talked about this way back in episode 2 of this podcast, and there's a blog post as well. There's links to them in the show notes. The second problem is that you are framing pity sex improperly. We discussed reframing duty sex back in episode 125 and seeing it as a loving expression rather than something to be avoided. If you actually learn to accept her offers and then make sex amazing for both of you, then you're more likely to get more offers. Instead, if she's offering and you're rejecting her because you don't want pity sex, that means you're less likely to get sex of any kind. The third is that if you can't have a conversation without one or the other feeling guilty, then something is wrong that needs to be dealt with. This shouldn't be the case. I mean, it often happens in marriages, but just because it's normal doesn't mean it's okay. There's not enough to go on to know exactly what is happening in your marriage, but if you want to get past that, perhaps reach out for some coaching and we can dig through what your communications issues are or attitudes and set you on a path to learn how to talk through conflict in an effective way in which you both feel good afterwards and you both get your needs and wants met. All right, question 2 is, my husband is being treated for prostate cancer. He is being given shots to reduce his testicles to 1/3 their size and also has shrunk his penis. He has no interest in sex of any kind and he just wants to cuddle. I have asked him to help me orgasm, but his lack of interest is frustrating me. How can I spark sexual interest? Well, if he's battling cancer, I'm not sure there's a ton you can do to increase his interest. However, what you could do is ask if he's willing to hold you while you masturbate. That way you get sexual release, you feel connected, it's a shared experience. It's not quite the same thing, but it's at least closer. Once the treatment is over, then maybe I'd talk to your doctor and see if there's anything that you can do to help with his sex drive, because I'm not well versed in the interaction of treatments, which I don't know what the treatments or the shots are, and whatever's going on with him. Question 3. My wife often refuses for us to use lube when engaging in different sexual acts because she commonly says that using lube makes you not be able to produce the natural lubrication she might want long term. Whenever we do use lube, sex is good and pleasurable for both of us anyways. Is there any truth to this, and any thoughts to encourage lube when needed without hurting her self-esteem? So I cannot find any scientific evidence that should suggest this is true, nor do I know of any anecdotal evidence. I will say that we tend to use lube every time because enough doesn't mean optimal. Plus, a lot of our sexual encounters tend to start with massages, and we use coconut oil for that, which doubles as lube. So what you can try doing is offering to give her a full body massage with coconut oil, then just continue to use it as you progress to sex. But no, I'm not aware of any sort of if you use lube, then you'll stop producing lubrication. Now, lubrication usually does diminish as you get older and your hormones shift, but that has nothing to do with the fact whether or not you did use lube before. Question 4 is, me and my wife right now have a somewhat consistent sex life of every 3 to 4 days, but we continue to do the exact, and I mean exact, repertoire every time. I'm really thankful to be engaging with her more frequently, but even after asking for variety and different things outside of the bedroom, it never translates into the bedroom. I feel selfish wanting more variety, but I haven't had much luck for a while. So every 3-4 days is about twice a week, which is pretty average. What I'm curious about is what's stopping you from changing up the repertoire. Often people think that their spouse is locked into a specific repertoire, but really they just haven't presented anything that's within their comfort zone. Like if your routine is just to do missionary position every time, and your next suggestion is, well, how about I tie you up, blindfold you, spank you, and edge you for an hour, that might be a leap. See if you can find a baby step that's moving towards something that you want, but isn't a giant leap like that. The point is, try to work with her comfort zone, not against it. Question number 5. This guy writes, I have struggled with severe premature ejaculation my whole life. It's very rare for my wife and I to be able to do anything for even a whole minute at a time without me having to stop her. I've been thinking about buying a strap-on for me to use on her in place of myself so I am able to actually let her enjoy herself without worrying about me not being able to keep up. So I think go for it. Mary Dance sells one that might fit the bill. There's a link to it in the show notes. And if you use the coupon code Uncovering Intimacy, you get, I think it's 15% off. Now, that said, premature ejaculation often is a psychological symptom of stress or anxiety, so that might be something to look into. Also, I recently had someone reach out to me to say he takes Zoloft to help with his premature ejaculation, so that might be worth talking to a doctor about. And of course, there are lots of numbing creams, desensitizing sprays, and so on. It's also a good opportunity to get better at sex that doesn't require an erection, such as manual and oral sex. If you can edge her a few times to start at first so that she's right on the brink of orgasm, then it might not matter as much that you only last a minute. Also, only something like 30% of wives orgasm from penetration anyways. So usually, for women anyways, penetration isn't necessarily the best part of sex. For some it is, but for many it's not. In question 6, this wife asks, my husband asked me for more handjobs because we have mismatched libidos and I don't like blowjobs. What's the best way to give him a handjob? I want it to be easy, good for him, and no mess after. I haven't given a lot of handjobs, but just had to finish him when close. Is that okay, or what do wives do here? Do husbands like handjobs, or is it a disappointment? The unanimous response from men in our supporters forum is that husbands like handjobs are in no way disappointed with them. One recommended you using condoms to keep the mess down, but by and large, usually men prefer that you embrace the mess, as it were. Of course, a towel nearby helps with cleanup later. Others encourage you to learn simply by doing, as what makes a good handjob will vary from husband to husband. For me, I wonder why lower sex drives means you can't still have sex. A lower libido simply lowers your desire for sex, not your capacity for sex. For the vast majority of people, even if you have a lower sex drive, it doesn't mean you can't get aroused and enjoy it with some foreplay. So I would recommend you adopt a mindset of, am I willing, rather than am I in the mood? And I'm going to link to our free ebook about where did my sex drive go in the comments. I'd recommend checking that out because it talks about some of these issues like willingness versus desire and a bunch of other stuff to do with sex drives. Question 7 is simply, is it immoral for a married couple to film themselves doing the deed, assuming it's for their own use? No, I don't think it's immoral, provided it only involves the husband and wife and only they will be watching them. I have a rather old post on the topic called Do Christians Make Sex Tapes? And we ran a survey a decade ago if you're curious about how common it is. All right, question 8 is, hello there. This is a quick and rather silly one, but both me and my husband seem to have better sex, more sensitive and generally more euphoric experience after having a filling meal. It's especially noticeable for me during penetrative sex. Neither of us are overweight or have any physical conditions that affect our sex lives. Is this normal? Is there any research behind it that you can point me to? Just curious. So, yeah, actually there is a couple of studies. I found a pilot study, which I'll link to in the show notes, that shows that women who consumed 500-calorie meal replacement drinks tended to respond better to romantic cues. I saw another study that showed that being hungry lowers your pleasure response to touch. So this may infer that if you're well fed or at least not hungry, that your brain is more willing to get aroused and enjoy sex because it's not currently in finding food mode. Also, having recently eaten would give you more available energy for sex. I know if I work out in the morning before eating, I can't push nearly as hard as I can with some carbs in me. Anecdotally, people tend to prefer not to have sex on a full stomach as it feels uncomfortable to be full and possibly gassy during sex. So perhaps there's a middle ground here. Have enough food to not be hungry and to make some energy, but not so much that you feel uncomfortable. And lastly, question 9. They write, we have discussed anal sex and both want to try it, but we want a safe place to learn the best way to start it versus Googling. Do you have any tips on how to start that would be discussed in a non-porn way? And honestly, I should probably write a guide at some point because this gets asked fairly frequently, but here are some tips to get started. Number 1, go slow. Don't say we're going to have anal sex tonight. Instead, just take an approach of slowly starting to work towards it. Start with fingers, start with rubbing rather than penetration. Don't expect to go from nothing to anal sex in a single night and have it feel good. Number 2 is use lots of lube, then use more, then add more later. And number 3 is relax. If you tense up, it will hurt. If it hurts, then you're doing something wrong. Back off, do something else, come back to it, or try another night. Maybe start with a massage. If she's multi-orgasmic, then it's recommended she have an orgasm first before trying. If she's not, then don't, because often that just gets her feeling too touched out, kind of. Number 4, clitoral stimulation might help. It might not. It's worth a try to see if it does for you. Number 5 is the easiest position to start is probably her on top. That way she can control the depth, speed, etc. And 6 is don't switch from anal play or sex to vaginal play or sex without washing your hands or your penis or whatever has been in where. Some people react very badly to cross-contamination of bacteria. Other people don't at all. But if you've never done it, you don't know which you are, and you don't want to find out. One of our supporters added a far more in-depth guide in the forum, but you'll have to go there to see it. And that's it for today. If you have a question of your own, you can ask it on our Have a Question page. There's the link in the show notes. If you'd like to see them as they come in or participate, consider joining our supporters forum. You also get to see all the extra stuff that people said in response to the questions. Some of them have a lot of good ideas and a lot of detail. Too much to simply pull out and just add to a quick post like this. Anyways, if you want to join a group of 150 or so Christians who are focusing on their marriage and not just the sex part, come check us out. And that's it for today. Don't forget, things are changing in the store, so if you want to check it out, now's your chance. Also, our webinar is coming up. There'll be a link to that in the show notes as well. If you're a wife and you're interested in becoming more sexually engaged in your marriage and actually wanting to have sex rather than wanting to check it out. That's what we built it for. And the webinar is not just like a sales pitch. It is actually the entire first module of the course. I will hold nothing back, and I will do my best to teach you as much as I can in that webinar. And we'll talk to you next time.